January 15, 1947, a Los Angeles woman walking along the 3800 block of Norton Street in Limer Park saw what looked like a department store mannequin lying in the weeds, its upper and lower halves detached. The mannequin turned out to be the naked body of a recently deceased woman as the woman approached it. It was officers Frank Perkins and Will Fitzgerald who arrived on the scene of the crime first. They were shocked and appalled by what they saw. The body was dismembered and actually split in two places. The woman's face and breasts were slashed, and she was posed with her arms raised above her head. Her ankles were rope burned, and her legs were spread wide apart with the initials BD carved into one of them. Since there was no sign of violence at the scene, the police assumed the woman had been killed elsewhere and her body dumped in the lot overnight or early in the morning. Officers called for backup, but by that time, a swarm of reporters and photographers had descended upon the scene, frustrating Harry Hansen and Finis Brown, the lead investigators. Because of their extensive experience in the homicide division, Hansen and Brown were given the task of investigating the murder. The LAPD homicide team's resources were quickly exhausted after the murder's news hit the press. However, none of the claims were ever verified. More attention was paid to the case after James Ellroy published The Black Dahlia in 1987. The LAPD says that they have been unable to solve the case to this day. Janice Knowlton has written a book implicating her father as the murderer, but the police have said that none of the claims she makes in the book are credible. Until a new author piques interest in the case with a book or news report, it will remain dormant in the LAPD cold case file. Once again, the files are open for a short period of time, but the lack of evidence and the availability of information about Beth's life result in the case being returned to the depths of some file cabinet in the Los Angeles Police Building. Beth Short, the daughter of Phoebe and Cleo Short, was born on July 29, 1924, in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. Elizabeth Short was her given name, but she preferred to go by Beth once she got older. That year, 1929, Betty's dad vanished. Since his car was found deserted next to a bridge, many assumed he had taken his own life there. He wrote his wife an apology letter years after he had left the family. Phoebe wouldn't let him back into her life. Elizabeth Short matured into a stunning adolescent, with an air of maturity and sophistication that set her apart from other girls her age. Going to the movies with her mom was the inspiration she needed to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. Beth moved to Vallejo, California to be with her father when she was 19 years old. The duration of the stay was brief, however. Her dad told her she was too sluggish and had been out too late, so he made her leave the house. Beth's subsequent stop was close to Santa Barbara. Here is where law enforcement officials found her and arrested her for being an underage alcoholic. The young woman was arrested and fingerprinted by the police, after which they released her with instructions to return to her home in Medford. Beth had gone back to her hometown for a visit, but she always came back to Hollywood because she wanted to make movies. Whether or not she was known as the Black Dahlia prior to her untimely demise is unknown. Some have speculated that the name came about because of her white complexion and her preference for dark, lacy clothes. While others think the media just wanted to make the crime more interesting, hence the name. Around the middle of January 1947, Beth was last seen at the Biltmore Hotel. A gentleman, so the rumor goes, was on her date. Soon after she checked out of the hotel, she vanished without a trace. Police were able to piece together details about her final days that led them to several potential suspects, but their inquiries led nowhere. As she prepared to return to Massachusetts with her sister, Beth was staying at the Biltmore Hotel. After visiting Red Manley in San Diego, she returned to Los Angeles. Manley said he could help the young actress break into the film industry, but he was really just looking for an excuse to get into her underwear. Manley drove her to the Biltmore and waited for her in the lobby after their meeting was over. A group of friends she was supposed to meet up with never showed up. After Manley told her he had to leave, she said her goodbyes and left the hotel, heading down Olive Street. Today was January 9, 1947. Nobody ever saw or heard from her again. It has never been established where she was for the final 5 days before her body was found. Her mother was contacted to confirm that the body belonged to her daughter before it was interred in Oakland, California's Mountain View Cemetery, originally in Plot 6, Grave 913. The cemetery staff, however, will not reveal any details about the grave site. It has been said that plot numbers have been changed to discourage the morbidly curious, but if you head down the main drag and turn left after the fountain, you should be close. Follow the path that rises to the right of a large tomb. That's where her grave ought to be. There was a mysterious package delivered to the LAPD shortly after Elizabeth Short's funeral. Beth's belongings, including her wallet, identification, and the local nightclub owner's address book, were inside. After thoroughly examining the returned items, it was concluded that the evidence offered no new leads. Gasoline was used to clean everything, so there were no traces of fingerprints anywhere. According to the coroner's report, Beth died from hemorrhage and shock due to concussion of the brain and lacerations of the face. The Los Angeles Police Department has refused to comment on whether or not a butcher knife was used to cut her in half. Extracts from the official coroner's report read as follows. Several cuts can be seen on the top and middle of the head, as well as on the right side of the forehead. Mild scrapes and cuts can be seen all over. An incision almost directly through the belly button severs the trunk in two. Multiple crisscross lacerations penetrate the skin and soft tissues of the suprapubic region. The intestine and both kidneys have been punctured. There is no sign of pregnancy and the uterus is quite small. There has been no damage to the reproductive organs. A flap of skin, with the attached fat and subcutaneous tissue, is lying loose within the vagina and higher up. There are multiple slashes in a crisscross pattern across this flap of skin. Sperm samples have been collected for a smear. A smear for spermatozoa was taken, and the anal opening was significantly enlarged, measuring 1¼ inches in diameter. Despite negative results from smears for spermatozoa, the stomach is full of greenish-brown granular matter, most likely feces and other particles. Most of the cuts, including the anal dilation, appeared to have been made after the woman had already passed away. There were over 50 confessing Sams, or people who falsely confessed to a crime to gain notoriety, but only one, Red Manley, was ever arrested. Manley, a married 26-year-old, was subjected to a rigorous investigation and was even paraded in handcuffs before the press. Eventually, he was cleared of suspicion. About 50 men and women came forward over the following weeks and years to confess to the Black Dahlia murder, and they became known as Confessing Sams. However, according to former LAPD homicide detective Brian Carr, by the time the case came under his purview in 1996, all of the confessors had been ruled out as shams.